My name is Claire Morgan, and the day I walked into that courtroom without a lawyer, I was already convinced I had lost. I was being sued for something I hadn't done. The amount was $480,000. I didn't have that kind of money. I didn't even have enough savings to hire a good attorney. For 3 weeks, I had tried calling lawyers, but every consultation ended the same way. You need money for a case like this. So on the morning of my hearing, I walked into the courthouse alone. I carried one folder. Inside were bank statements, emails, photographs, and one old document I wasn't even sure would matter. The courtroom was packed. The opposing attorney sat confidently beside his client. I sat at the other table by myself. Then the judge entered. Everyone stood. I looked up and froze. There was something familiar about her face, but I couldn't place it. She took her seat, reviewed the case file, and looked directly at me. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she asked my name, Claire Morgan. Her expression changed. She looked at the file again, then back at me. "You don't know me?" I stared at her. "I'm sorry, Your Honor." "Should I?" A strange silence filled the courtroom. The opposing attorney smiled as if I had just made things worse for myself. The judge leaned back. "You really don't remember me?" I shook my head. "No." She slowly removed her glasses. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "You were the reason I became a judge." I couldn't breathe. The courtroom went completely silent. I had never met a judge before in my life. At least, I didn't think I had. Then she asked the bailiff to lock the courtroom doors. The opposing attorney immediately stood. "Your Honor, what is happening?" She didn't answer him. Instead, she looked at me and said, "Claire, before we discuss this lawsuit, I need you to tell me what happened 11 years ago." My hands began shaking. Because 11 years ago, I had made one decision that I had spent my entire life trying to forget. And somehow, the woman sitting behind that bench knew everything. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to Public Evidence for more emotional courtroom stories, hidden truths, and unexpected justice. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? I opened the old folder and placed the document on the table. The judge looked at it. Her face went pale because the document had her name on it. Act 3. The Man Behind the Lawsuit. The judge placed the sealed file on the bench. Then she looked at the opposing attorney. "Tell the court who hired your client." He hesitated. "I don't have that information, Your Honor." The judge's expression hardened. "You were paid to represent him. You know who transferred the money." The attorney remained silent. Then the courtroom doors opened. An older man walked in with 2 security guards. The moment I saw him, I couldn't breathe. It was Daniel Whitmore, the businessman from the accident 11 years ago, the man who had tried to buy my silence. I hadn't seen him since the night he was arrested. He looked at me and smiled. "Claire." My hands began shaking. The judge stood. "Mr. Whitmore, you were not summoned." He ignored her. "I came because I wanted to finish something that should have ended years ago." The judge stepped down from the bench. Down from the bench. "You don't get to control this courtroom." Whitmore looked at her. "You became a judge because of her." He pointed at me. "And now you're going to destroy my life because of her too?" The judge didn't move. "Your life was already destroyed by your own choices." Whitmore laughed. "You think you know everything?" Then he dropped a thick folder onto the table. I looked at it. "What's that?" "Your grandfather's name is inside." My heart stopped. "My grandfather?" Whitmore nodded. "He was involved from the beginning." I couldn't believe it. My grandfather had always told me the accident was a tragedy that happened to strangers. He had never mentioned Whitmore. The judge opened the folder. Inside were financial records showing payments made 11 years ago. One payment had been sent to the law student who later became a witness. Another had been sent to a police officer. And the final payment had been made to my grandfather. I stared at the page. Why would he take money from you? Whitmore smiled. Because your grandfather knew what really happened that night. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge looked at me. Claire, I'm sorry. I shook my head. No, there has to be more. Then I remembered the old document in my folder. I opened it again. At the bottom was my grandfather's signature, but underneath it was a handwritten sentence I had never noticed before. If Claire ever discovers the truth, tell her to look beneath the courthouse. I looked at the judge. She read the sentence. Then her face changed, because she knew exactly what my grandfather meant. There was an old evidence archive beneath the courthouse, and the judge told the bailiff to open it immediately. The bailiff returned 20 minutes later. He was carrying a dusty evidence box. The judge ordered him to place it on the bench. I recognized the handwriting on the label immediately. My grandfather had written it. Claire, this belongs to you. My hands shook as I opened the box. Inside were photographs from the accident, police reports, financial records, and a small recording device. The judge picked it up. Then she pressed play. My grandfather's voice filled the courtroom. If this recording is being played, Claire has finally discovered what happened. I closed my eyes. He continued. 11 years ago, Daniel Whitmore caused that accident, but the police report was altered. My grandfather had discovered the alteration and tried to expose it. Then Whitmore threatened him. He told my grandfather that if the truth became public, people would die. I looked at Whitmore. He was no longer smiling. The recording continued. I made one terrible mistake. I accepted money from Whitmore. The courtroom went silent. I couldn't breathe. But I never took it for myself. I used it to protect Claire. My grandfather explained that he had secretly hired investigators and placed evidence in different locations in case anything happened to him. Then came the final part. Claire was the only person who told the truth that night. She deserves to know that her courage mattered. I began crying. For 11 years, I had believed that my grandfather had been ashamed of me for becoming involved in that case. The truth was the opposite. He had been protecting me. The judge looked at Whitmore. The evidence is sufficient to reopen the original investigation. Whitmore stepped forward. You can't do this. She looked directly at him. I can. You don't understand who you're dealing with. The judge remained calm. I understand perfectly. Then she turned toward me. Claire, the lawsuit against you is dismissed. The opposing attorney lowered his head. His entire case had collapsed, but the judge wasn't finished. She ordered the documents to be transferred to federal investigators. Whitmore was escorted out of the courtroom. Before he left, he looked back at me. You think this is over? I looked at the judge, then at him. No, I think it's finally beginning. For the first time in 11 years, the truth wasn't buried anymore. It was sitting in the center of the courtroom. The courtroom emptied slowly, but I stayed where I was. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't afraid of what people might discover. The judge remained on the bench until the investigators finished collecting the evidence. Then she looked at me. Claire, there is something else you need to know. I walked closer. What? She opened the old evidence box and removed a final envelope. Your grandfather left this for you. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a short letter. Claire, if you're reading this, then the truth finally found its way into the light. I know you may be angry with me for keeping so much from you, but I wanted you to understand something. That night, when you stood up and told the truth, you changed more lives than you knew. I had spent my entire life believing my grandfather had protege. Believing my grandfather had protected me because he thought I was weak. Now I understood. He had protected me because he knew exactly how strong I could become. The judge watched me read. Then she said something I would never forget. You didn't save me because you were brave. You saved me because you were willing to tell the truth when telling the truth cost you everything. I looked at her. And now you're a judge. She smiled, because someone once showed me what courage looked like. Months later, the original investigation was reopened. The evidence from the courthouse led investigators to several people who had helped cover up the accident. The lawsuit against me disappeared completely. Daniel Whitmore faced criminal charges for what he had done 11 years earlier. But the biggest change wasn't legal, it was inside me. For years, I had carried the memory of that night like a burden. I thought I had ruined lives by speaking up. Now I understood that silence would have been the real mistake. I returned to the courthouse months later. The judge saw me in the hallway. "Still no lawyer?" She smiled. I laughed. "Not today." We stood there for a moment. Then she said, "You know, I never forgot you." I smiled. "I didn't remember you." "I know." And somehow that made us both laugh. I had walked into that courtroom believing I had no one on my side. I walked out knowing something much more important. Sometimes justice doesn't begin with a lawyer. Sometimes it begins with one person refusing to lie. And sometimes the person sitting behind the bench isn't there to judge your past. They're there because your past changed theirs. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Public Evidence for more emotional courtroom stories, hidden truths, unexpected twists, and moments when justice finally catches up with the people who thought they had escaped it. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? Because sometimes one honest decision can change the lives of people you may never even know.